So Marilyn Manson just got himself a monster win as far as admissions from an accuser and as far as call-outs while settling a trial. And you don't have to take my word on it being a monster win. No, all you have to do is look at the accuser, how this person is spinning it now. I mean, this tells you all you need to know. See, the accuser pretty much admits they were afraid they would indeed lose this case. A lot of this stuff sounded like they could too, and that would shut them down from being able to talk about this at all. They would get nothing out of it, and they would lose the anonymity, the shadows here. They would face this in the public. Now, Manson's own lawyers have sounded off about this too, and you and I, we're going to talk about that today. Oh man, and this is crazy times. This is crazy times indeed. All right, so hey there to all you fine folks on this fine day, by the way. I hope you are doing excellently. So this news, it hit like an absolute bombshell. Why? Because Marilyn Manson was set to go to trial October the 2nd. That would have been next week. I mean, we're looking down a trial here, and suddenly everything, it's settled. Now, as far as all of this being a big win is concerned, you do not have to take my word for that at all. All you have to do is look at the accuser's camp. Look at how they're spinning this in the aftermath, what they're saying, why we did this. And remember, their decision to settle came less than a week before this thing was going to trial. So listen to this. This is through the Rolling Stone, by the way, that has gotten so many cases wrong. Quote, I was fully prepared for trial and never in a million years thought I would ever settle. But after the past 2.5 years, I have silently endured threats, bullying, and various forms of intimidation that have intensified over the past few weeks. So you see right there, I mean, this is spin saying, yeah, I've dealt with all of this. Oh, it has been bad. It is even worsened. But right before this, we decided to settle. Why? Quote, Marilyn Manson attended my deposition, and I was forced to answer 7 hours of aggressive questioning with him staring at me from across the table. That, by the way, does indeed happen. Aggressive questioning, yeah, it's always going to be like that. I've been told that this almost never happens, as it's cruel, and that the main reason for it would be to intimidate and inflict emotional distress on a victim. Told by who, by the way? Your lawyer said that? I mean, somebody in the public? Who exactly told you that spin? Now, the rest of this is where it gets really interesting. Why? Because they admit that they were afraid they were going to lose this case. And at that, too, they were going to do it, and people would know exactly who they are. Quote, I never cared about money and only ever wanted justice. But if we had gone to trial, I could have lost my right to anonymity and been victim blamed on a large and public scale. Most importantly, listen to this part. I think this is really telling. I could have risked losing the freedom to tell my story, and that is worth more than anything in the world. So they're telling you right there, they wanted the right to accuse someone from the shadows. You weren't going to get to face that accuser. People knew who this was, by the way, because they didn't stay in the shadows. They actually did interviews and more. But on top of that, losing the freedom to tell your story, that says that you were afraid you were going to lose the case. That, like I said, that is a big time revelation. Now, Marilyn Manson's attorney sounds off and demolishes this, in my opinion, saying, hey, if she wanted to share her story here, she would have been able to do this. She would have been able to do it next week. But hey, she chose not to. Quote, if this individual had actually wanted to share her story, he begins, there's a lot more to this, by the way, she could have done so in front of a jury next week. And that is true, by the way. She would have been able to do that. The mainstream media, they would have been able to pick it up in depth and run with it, but they wouldn't have been able to control that narrative. That also would have been a big thing too. Anybody would have been able to listen disseminate, and make their own opinion. Now from there, he uses that as a springboard to go after the meritless case, he calls this, saying, she could have gone out, she could have said something, but instead, when she saw it falling apart, she was willing to settle for nothing here. And a really telling part of this, too, is the word insurance payment. I mean, think about this. You go to trial, you don't know how that's going to come up. Sure, you have a strong case. You can blast this. In fact, you can prove to the public everything here could be potentially false. But if you end up on the hook, who pays out? Possibly you, and you accrue costs going to trial as well. So listen to this right here. Instead, he begins, as soon as the facts came out showing that her case was meritless, she settles for pennies on the dollar. And as far as the settlement amount is concerned, he says, quote, it's an insurance payment. Again, I think that is an important distinction here, representing a fraction of her demands and far less than the cost to Brian of proceeding to trial. Now from there, you get things getting really spicy. Why? Because you have Marilyn Manson's attorney saying, as far as your ability to tell your story is concerned, we're down with that. In fact, with your permission, and this puts her on the spot, by the way, because if they say, no, we don't want you to do that, people will question why, just like they do with the settlement. But with your permission, we'd like to put out everything that's here. Listen to this, quote, as a result, since we wholeheartedly support her freedom to tell her story, we would be thrilled with her permission to release the full transcript of her deposition under oath. That includes the provocative emails and materials that she sent to Mr. Warner after the alleged, I'm going to say, accostings here, so that everyone else can know the truth as well. I mean, that is a call out. That is saying, you can tell your story. We want you to tell your story. In fact, why don't we drop everything into the public instead of, those big, spicy headlines places like Rolling Stone like to throw around? Really, I think that people need to do their own research too, because places like the Rolling Stone have not only gotten it drastically wrong in the past. We're talking about sued and losing. That's how bad, because of quote unquote, listen and believe. But as far as these headlines that they put out are concerned, most of them are locked behind paywalls. People never see what's going on. There are a lot of good sources out there that go through the minutia too. The Manson cases, Colonel Kurtz, plenty of people check them out. But I feel that this was a big win for him. He still has a big case. It's on the horizon. Evan Rachel Wood, that's what we're going to be looking at. I don't think you're going to see any kind of settlement with that. I mean, that is an all or nothing thing. But let me know what you think about this. And as always, appreciate the heck out of you. You make this work. You are the channel. So thank you. Links are in the comments too if you want to help out. And again, thanks. Appreciate you. Sub, all that good stuff. See you soon.